Hello dear viewers and welcome to a new episode of Windows. I'm your host for tonight, Mohammed Abdirrahim, and tonight we'll be talking about World Museum Day, International Museum Day, which will be celebrated on Saturday, the 18th of May here in Egypt and across the globe. International Museum Day, or IMD, is an international day held annually by the International Council of Museums. The event highlights a specific theme with changes every year reflecting a relevant theme for or issue facing museums, and this year's theme is education and research. We have the great pleasure of having with us here tonight in the studio Dr. Sharif Elsanadidy, and he is a PhD researcher in museum studies, and he's also a senior curator at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, NEMC. A very good evening to you, Dr. Elsanadidy, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mr. Muhammad, and I should to thank you for invitation for talking about the International Museum Day, and I have a nice interview with you.
Thank you very much, sir, for being here with us on ITV International. So the world is going to celebrate on Saturday, May the 18th, International Museum Day, under the theme this year of education and research. Please tell us about that theme, about the history of International Museum Day, and about how Egypt is readying itself to celebrate this great day.
So this celebration was started in 1977 by ICOM, and this celebration, and I'd like first to congratulate every museum professional everywhere in Egypt and outside Egypt. And this day was established by the ICOM, the International Council of Museum, for many reasons, for many objectives. And the objectives of this day is to attract the society for the vital role of museum in the service of the society for its development, for sustainability, and as well as for collecting heritage of the society in both type, natural heritage or cultural heritage. And the cultural heritage is divided also to intangible heritage and tangible heritage. And as well as museum has a lot of missions for preserving this heritage through documenting, through registration, by traditional ways and digital ways, and so on. And as well as museum are doing a vital role for conserving and caring the objects and artifacts through conservation, caring, restoration, and then for storage as well. And we should put our store objects and artifacts in a proper environment or under environmental control. According to, we should set temperature. We should put everything under control, including temperature, humidity, and the degree of light system, and so on. And this one of the main role and concern of museum. And another concern for museum is the theme of this year.
Right.
The theme of this year is museums for education and research. And if we went back to the definition of the museum, the definition of museum is saying the museum is non-for-profit permanent institution in the service of society that collects objects preserving, conserving, and exhibiting objects according tangible and intangible heritage, and also submitted objects and artifacts for study and research from different fields. So according to the type of object, and this object and artifacts we can study in history field, archaeology field, and according to material, and if we have human remains or bioarchaeology and so on, as well, museums became a scientific research center. It means we have, as example, at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, there is 15 labs for examination, for as DNA, microbiology, archaeobotany, radio, and so on. And this help scholars, researchers from the museum to study objects and artifacts, and also researchers and students of universities to come to museum to study this object and artifacts according to their fields.
Yes, Dr. Elsanadidy. And before we discuss Egypt's celebrations and preparation for International Museum Day, I just want to recall a piece of information, a historic piece of information that you mentioned, that the first International Museum Day took place, as you said, in 1977. And then in 1992, an annual theme was picked for the very first time, and since then there's been an annual theme since 92 until today, 2024. And an international poster was first adopted in 1997, and that year was adopted by 28 countries, and then by the year 2011 it was more than 100 countries. And today we are talking about most of the world's countries and tens of thousands of museums across the globe. So this is a very significant day for you guys. I mean, the museum personnel.
So the most museum over the world, and as you said, thousands museums over
tens
the world.
Tens of thousands, yes.
It's more. I think the last static for the museum, which celebrated with this day, more 37,000 museums celebrated.
Yes.
With
exactly tens of thousands. I mean, so 37 would be tens of thousands.
Yes. And why we are celebrating with this museum? We try attract the society for the vital role of museum, and to encourage museum professional to communicate with the society, to know the important role of museum for preserving heritage, for education, and to learn, as example for education. So now each museum dedicated a department for learning, or a museum education department, or museum schools. As example, I talk about Egypt. So all museums across Egypt dedicated a department for learning or educational department. And for the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, as example, we have an educational department, and we have also Kemet school. Kemet school is a private project from private company, dedicated a department for learning kids on how to make excavation.
Kemet is a pharaonic word?
Kemet is the name of Egypt, the oldest name of Egypt.
And the hieroglyphic.
And this name converted to Egypt, to be Egypt in English. But by Arabic it is pronounced as...
That's in the hieroglyphic language?
Egyptian language. Hieroglyphic is a font that Egyptian used, but Egyptian language was written by 4 fonts: hieroglyphic, hieratic, demotic,
and
Kemet.
the name came during the pharaonic era.
This is pharaonic pronunciation.
Okay.
But this word converted according to accent. So Greek pronounced it Aegyptus, and Arab pronounced it Copt, and English pronounced it Egypt, and Japanese pronounced it Egypto as
okay.
And we try to revive the old name of Egypt, Kemet. And so we attract a lot of students from schools, universities, and so on, to teach them how we excavated object, and then we make a guiding tour for them across the halls of museum, to know the museum, to inspire, to explore the object and the artifacts of the museum, and what it is behind the object, because the object has a lot of stories behind
it.
Behind the knowledge related to the people who made it, about usage, about culture, about material, about technique, about the development of making this object and artifacts, and we try to give him an inspiration and exploration for the object and artifacts. And as well, also we are organizing different forums, conferences, meeting and workshop for training them related different things. And as example, for archaeologists and museum professional, we are organizing a workshop for documentation, registration, and for conservation, and so on. And also we are organizing some international schools, not only related Egyptian students, but we organizing each summer. We have a summer school and we have a winter school for teaching students who are studying museum studies or heritage, or who are studying conservation, and they are coming to us for discussing together about new paper and new researches related conservation, related new technology related conservation. And as I said, we have 15 labs in our museum. Some of them related infrared, ultraviolet, and radio, and so on. And these facilities and devices can help researchers to know and to recognize and to help him for analyzing the samples and analyzing their research.
Right. I mean, listening to you, Dr. Elsanadidy, and reading about the themes, the previous themes of the prior years, you know, it seems that what you're saying here really touches with some of these themes. I mean, and I liked very much some of them. I mean, in 2020, this year, of course, we said it's research, education and research. 2022, it was the power of museums. I mean, that's an amazing theme. In 2011, for instance, museum and memory objects tell you the story. In 2005, it was museums bridging cultures. 2004, museums and intangible heritage. 2002, museums and globalization. Museums and friends, pleasures of discovery, museums and harmony. I mean, these are amazing. It seems museums are connected to every aspect of life.
These all aspects or themes the museum are focusing and are concerning of these themes. As example, as you said, in 2022,
power of museums.
The power of museum, because the museum is we can change the life and the trend of any people by museum. As example, in America, when they wanted to change the direction of the student who are studying science, they created new museums called child museum, and they established with equipments related science, related geology, related natural science, to attract children while they were young, while they are young, to direct to study science. And this one example. And the museum also has a power. I'll give you the power of our museum, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, as
it's a beautiful museum,
as example
of course,
for the power of this museum. If we looked to the site of the National Museum 20 years ago, this area was dirty, was trash dump.
There were slums around there. Although, of course, this is a beautiful historic place for
accommodation
in Cairo, for start. I mean, the oldest place in Cairo.
And it was a place of criminal and so on. And when we established museum, the area changed completely. And so the government began to make infrastructure and paving roads, and try to clean the Ain Sira Lake. And if you looked to Ain Sira Lake now and Ain Sira 3 or 4 years ago, isn't as it was.
Of course.
And so the museum changed the area around it, and also the government decided to develop the area around it, and they began to make a big project called Fustat Gardens, and so the area changed completely.
Indeed.
And so this
indeed, that was power.
This is an example
of
for
the
the
power
power.
of
And if we talk about the Grand Egyptian Museum as well, the Grand Egyptian Museum area now changed completely. And so the government focused in this area and cleaned and began to make a big project and to link between Giza Pyramids Plateau and museum.
That's just
and
one single aspect of the power, because the main power, I guess, is the objects that the museum has and the stories that it tells and the precious fortunes that it possesses.
And the power for object, so the power of object is to give you inspiration and exploration for ideas, and who would like to look what behind the object. It can give you inspiration for how the object was made, the tools for making this, the knowledge for person or people who
you as a curator,
and this object can create new ideas and concepts, and we can develop develop these ideas for the modern life. And the object isn't only for displaying. The object is for inspiration, for exploration, for thinking, for getting artistic value, for technical value, for religious value, for social value.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, really.
Yeah, and
Dr.
so there are many meanings and objectives behind exhibition. Plus, the exhibition for the themes that the ICOM focuses here.
Yes, education and research.
Yeah, the Museum for Education and Research. Because the definition of the museum in the past was focusing on this theme. Because
so we're getting back to the origins.
The collecting of objects in the past was concerning for this theme. The museum is a place for research and education, and for another things. And behind the research and education, publication, and we learn student, and we make a workshop for how to write paper, how to write research, plus there are some labs for examination to help you to analyze your material, raw material, and as it is. And also a museum can publish. As example, in our museum we have a printing house. Printing house.
Mimic again, yes.
Yeah, again, we have a lot of facilities to power, or to give power for the museum, including building a printing house for printing books to help us for publish
education again, and research
magazine,
again.
books, catalog, flyers, and so on.
And preserving of
also
heritage,
to serve community around us, because we can help a community to publish their books, flyers, different things related research and publication and so on.
Dr. Elsanadidy, how is Egypt preparing for celebrations of IMD, International Museum Day?
So I think all museums across Egypt are ready now for this celebration. As example, the Museum of Supreme Council of Antiquities give a free of charge free tickets for visitors on this day, and anyone can go to museum free to enjoy.
All museums across Egypt?
All museums except the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization and the Grand Egyptian Museum.
Okay.
But all museums related Supreme Council of Antiquities and Ministry of Culture allow it for the visitors to go
on Saturday. Yes.
Yeah, on Saturday, and some museums allowed more days, not only Saturday, and also arranged many workshops for children, for people, and guiding tour, and so anyone can go there, and he can enjoy by listening to the story of each museum and objects and the function and mission of each museum.
GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum, has had a soft opening. It has been already described by many experts that this will be the biggest cultural city in the world, not just the biggest museum, but the biggest cultural city. So talk to us about, how far is it ready for official inauguration, since we only have a soft opening so far. And tell us more about GEM, things that we don't know.
So the concept of building a museum now in Egypt, especially big museums as the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization and the Grand Museum, is try to focus on museum are more than museum, not only museum, but the museum is a comprehensive complex or an integrated cultural institution that can serve many things, not only exhibiting education and preservation and these traditional roles of a museum, but also allow for you to enjoy, to visit, because it is established by cinema, theaters, open garden, restaurant, commercial center, and also organizing the different events related, raising awareness of community in different things, related history, related culture, related preservation, related touristic tourist awareness,
Right.
archaeological archaeology awareness, and so on. And so the museum isn't the museum haven't become as in the past, but became a comprehensive cultural hubs for many things, and
Indeed.
it has a lot of facilities. And we
Indeed.
try to do that for the big museums across Egypt, especially the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization and the Grand Egyptian Museum near Gem.
All right. Dr. Elsanadidy, dear viewers, allow us to take a short break, and then we'll come back and continue our discussion here on Windows as the world and Egypt are celebrating International Museum Day on Saturday, May the 18th. We're back here on Windows with Dr. Mahrous Elsanadidy, PhD researcher in museum studies and senior curator at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, NEMEC, talking about International Museum Day. Dr. Elsanadidy, you mentioned more than once the fact that objects preserved in museums tell you a lot about history, and I was wondering, you as a curator, do you have to know how this object was made in order to be able to preserve it and conserve it in the best possible way, or do you just have to know some glimpses about how it was made?
And for me as a curator, so I learned how to define the object, and define on the object to describe it, the type and description, material and size and so on. And for preserving object, we should define the object if it is made of organic material or inorganic material, because later when we will store this object and artifacts, we should store in a storage related to the object, because each storage established or equipped with environment, we can tell as under environmental control, as example of the organic material need a special environment related temperature, and the temperature should be between 18 degrees to 22, and the humidity should be less 50%, and also we should take consideration for the degree of light system and so and also for if the object is very precious, we should care for it, and we should prepare and establish, say, can secure case to save it. And we are doing a lot of things related keeping and preserving through registration, documentation, give a unique number for each object, and we take a support from our colleague who our colleagues who are working in conservation. If I confused between for the material which is the object is made, so I can take an assistant of our colleague of conservation or a specialist in geology, because we have many specialists in museum, specialists in geology, chemistry, physics, bioarchaeology, botany, and radio, human remains, and so on. And we get a help from them to separate or to classify the object according to material. As example, for mummies. So mummies needs special care for preserving and storing and exhibiting. And so we established, when we established the mummies gallery, we bought special showcase, and we supplied these showcases by nitrogen gas to preserve and to save good environment inside the showcase, to save and preserve the mummies. And also we have a quarantine or quarantine for the mummies in our museum, especially for the mummies. And we have about 11 storage rooms in our museum. Some of them dedicated for wood as organic material, for textile, for portrait, and so on, and other for metals, and other for stones.
I get the sense, Dr. Elsanadidy, that Egyptian museums are living their golden age today. Is that true? And if so, tell us how.
So I think, yes. The last 10 years are considered the golden age of museums, because we opened many museums across Egypt. As example, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, Malawi Museum, Sharm el-Sheikh, Hurghada, Kafr el-Sheikh, the Greek-Roman Museum, the Suez Canal Museums, and we reopened many museums for Aztanta Museum, Sohag Museum, Aswan, and so on. And also for the opening museum, we try to make refreshment every month. As example, again, I'll talk about our museum. So every month we are organizing a special exhibition called a temporary exhibition for a certain theme. As example, now we are celebrating 3 years of opening our museum. We made a special gallery for this, and last month we made a special gallery, or temporary gallery, about Egyptian food, traditional Egyptian food, and we are fostering an initiative about traditional food and traditional Egyptian menu for food, and we try to record
that
them.
coincided with Ramadan, I think.
Is not around
After Ramadan. You're
last
talking
month,
April, right?
Yeah.
April, yeah.
In April.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the final days of Ramadan were in April, yes.
But in March we established a gallery about Belladonna, or Women Day. So every month,
yeah, March is known to be the
every month we are organizing a new exhibition to make refreshment for our museum, and also to attract new visitors for our museum, because we are targeting everyone. We are targeting specialists, artists, specialists in history, in archaeology, in art, in science, and who are interested in displaying and object and different things. And so
so
we are collecting all types of visitors.
Understood. Finally, how do you personally plan to celebrate International Museum Day? And how do you feel as a man whose academic and professional career is totally linked to museums? So how do you feel on that day, International Museum Day?
So I think it is a good chance for attract the museum professionals to remember the vital role for museum professionals in museum to refreshment and revive his role, and also to attract and pay attention of the society related to the service that the museums are presented for them. They are presenting, so they are collecting objects and artifacts and preserving this heritage in both type, natural heritage and cultural heritage, and as well for cultural heritage is divided to tangible heritage or material culture and intangible heritage. And the power of them, they are joined together to give you idea about many things, about the concept for making object, why these people made this, the custom and tradition in different area, because each area has a special custom tradition for making object related to their life. As example, the objects and artifacts were made in Cairo are different than Aswan, different than in Sinai, different than in Nubia, and also the custom and tradition related geographical area in Egypt are different, and we try to show different things related to the life and celebration across Egypt. And I think this is a good chance for museum to remember and to remind their audiences and visitors with the importance of museum in society and in service of the society and its development or its sustainable development.
Beautiful. On that note, dear viewers, on behalf of you, we thank very much our dear guests with us here in the studio, Dr. Mahrous Elsanadidy, PhD researcher in museum studies and a senior curator at NEMC, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. And happy International Museum Day. Yeah. It's your day anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, I'd like to take this chance to congratulate our colleague everywhere in Egypt and outside Egypt on this occasion, and happy Museum Day for everyone. And I thank you again for inviting me to remember and remind people and our citizens in Egypt with the vital role of museum across Egypt, related many things, including the theme of this year about museum for education and research, because the education and research is the main pillar for advancing Egypt.
Thank you very much, Dr. Elsanadidy. Again, it's been a great pleasure. And thank you, dear viewers, for watching Windows. This is Mohammed Abdurrahim, and this is Good Night.